Welcome to Evilive, the live media commentary show that answers the question, should I get infected for the huge cock? Because let me tell you something, this film is filled with cock. Subscribe if you're new to the channel because today we are reviewing 28 years later, brand new out this weekend. I know people usually like to wait for spoiler reviews, but this is a choice that you have to make. Do you want to listen to a spoiler review of 28 years later? Or do you want to go watch it and then come back? That's your choice. I'm going to let you be an adult and make your own decisions. But you do know this is a spoiler. All right. So the log line of this film is a group of survivors of the rage virus live on a small island. While one of the group leaves the island on a mission into the mainland, he discovers secrets, wonders, and horrors that have mutated not only the infected, but other survivors. And while that's true, it doesn't really tell you the focus of this. And the focus of this, and arguably any great film, is the humanity and the heart. And this is filled with both, which is what I really love about post-apocalyptic films. You get to see the setting, but the story itself is just a great story no matter what. It just happens to be in that setting. So in this particular case, this colony that is living in the quarantined British Isles, the rest of the world has gone on and living their lives normally. They have cell phones and delivery jobs and, just everything's normal everywhere except for UK. So everything in UK is just isolated unto themselves. If you happen to sink or crash outside of the isle, if you end up on that island, no one is coming to help you. It is just one big dead zone of humanity left to their own devices with no outside support at all. That's the setting. So there's this small community set off on an island that's separated by this land bridge that is covered in high tide. And the only time that you can cross that land bridge, of course, is low tide. Otherwise, the current will wash you out to sea. The film does a really good job of giving you all of the historical background you're going to need about what, the different types of infected that have since evolved, and really life as it is, without being wildly ham-fisted about it, without just standing there and just hearing a voiceover, on the screen. You actually get to see it and you experience it as this young man is experiencing it. So much like many ancient cultures of our own world, this one is pretty much like a rite of passage that they all have to go through. And usually it's around 14 or 15. But in this particular case, the young man played by Alfie Williams, who plays the character Spike, he's a 12-year-old kid. Him and his father Jamie, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, who both of them are great. I mean, all the actors in this are really superb. They do a great job portraying their characters and really making you believe this world, which is incredibly important. In any case, Spike is the heart and soul of this film. And he is the character that we follow, though they don't really tell you that until it happens, which I actually appreciated. The trailer really made me think it was the father that we were following, or maybe a father-son duo, but that's not it at all. So the very beginning of this is really just about this rite of passage where the father has to take their son over to the mainland, cross the land bridge when it's low tide, and get back in time. So they have about 4 hours to be out there before the tide comes back, and they have to kill their first infected. The entire culture on this island is based around the idea of survival, only using what you need and contributing in some way to the greater culture and society that lives here together in safety, relative safety. And they all celebrate themselves, and there's this really interesting cultural dynamic that has been brought up that I really dug a lot. In some ways, it kind of reminded me of Wicker Man, like the original old 70s or late 60s, 70s one, which was dope. But it is far enough removed not to be some weird copy. But I could see some of the craziness that we witnessed in Wicker Man in this seasonally and stuff. But in any case, so the father and son go over, and we're introduced to the different types of zombies, the rage virus infected zombies. So in the 28 days later and 28 weeks later, they're presented as, once you're infected with rage, you basically just go crazy until you die of starvation. That's really not the case anymore. Apparently, the exposure, if they're not overtly killed by people, and again, time and distance allows the real life of the virus to manifest. And so we couldn't have known about this in 28 days or weeks later because they were only days or weeks after the infection. So now that we're years later, we see that the infected don't actually just die off. It actually manifests in different ways depending on the individual creatures. It has some sort of weird steroid effect on some, turning them into what they refer to as alphas or barbarians, which is very cool. They're like massively large men with gigantic cocks just flapping in the breeze the whole time, which is very, very strange. This has a disproportionate amount of cock in this film. There's so much penis. It made me uncomfortable. Normally, I don't give a fuck. I have one. I see him every day right here. So I don't think about it. But when it's like on screen, on an alpha, like massive in your face, you're just like, okay, that's egregious. we don't need that much penis, do we? Like, really? I don't even think most women like that much penis. But anyway, so they witness like these. It's like these big fat bloated creatures that just crawl, and they basically eat worms and stuff, but they're like slimy and monstrous and stuff. And then there's just the regular ones that just run really fast and stuff. So we're introduced to them, and basically the father and son are just going out there to get the son's first kill because archery is a big part of their life because they have to defend themselves. So when the land bridge is revealed due to low tide, things can come across and they have to be able to stop them. Or when they're out collecting wood from the forests on mainland, they have to be able to protect each other. And so archery is the go-to skill. The downside is you can't reuse those arrows because they're covered in blood, right? And the infection is passed through the blood. So arrows are a one-use item. Even if you could pull them out, you're going to get infected trying to like wipe them off, or you could get infected, doing that type of stuff. So you're pretty much just screwed. They run out of arrows, and then they run across an alpha who sets upon them. And there's a lot of really, really great tension-filled sequences in this film, whether it's being chased into a house and them having to go into an attic, or in a train and being chased by an alpha in the train. One thing that I don't really dig in this was that the infected can actually impregnate each other. And I'll be getting to the part in the film here in a second, but that's a big part of this. So then are we led to believe that the pregnant person got pregnant during infection? Like, do the rage-filled zombies fuck each other? Is that the suggestion? Or was she pregnant before she got rage-filled and the womb or the whatever just protected the baby? In any case, it's a little bit of interesting storytelling, and it leads to a very interesting visual sequence, an emotional sequence. So basically, they finally get back, and there's this big party, and the father is bloviating what actually happened and making the son into this giant killer, which in reality he did really well considering, and he did kill some of the fat, slow ones, but he didn't kill any of the fast ones, like his father is intimating, and he feels like this is all a big lie. And then he sees his father go off and cheat on his mother. Now we got to talk about the mother. She's clearly infected with something. It looks like it could be like a massive body flu, but they don't have doctors anymore on the island. So, the lore is they all died out, some 20 years ago or whatever. They just don't have them anymore. So there's this whole idea of the father frustrated that he has to take care of his wife, who is just basically going crazy, it seems like. She's like dementia or something, even though she's a young woman. She's played by Jodie Comer. Her name is Isla, and she is fantastic. She just does such a great job sinking your mind into her dementia and experience and stuff. But ultimately, we see the son seeing the father cheating on the wife, his mom, and then him basically telling his dad to get the hell out of there. He doesn't want him in the house anymore, and he even pulls a knife on him. And the dad ends up leaving all pissed off, which again was a little bit odd. I feel like there should have been a little more communication, especially after having just gone through that rite of passage together. The father and son should have a much closer dynamic than it appears that they do, and certainly for the father just to walk off the way he did. In any case, I was there for it. So the son is then got in his head because when they were out on the rite of passage, they saw this big bonfire in the distance, and the kid came home to the guy that was watching the mother, another community member, and he said that it was an old doctor who like lived there at one point. The son confronts the dad about it at breakfast, and he's like, he maybe was a doctor once, but he's an insane person now. And so the son gets in his head like, look, my father's not going to take care of my mother. My mother's going to die. So I'm going to manufacture a situation so I can take her off this island and take her to the doctor, which is the bulk of what this film is. It's the son taking the dying mother to a doctor, hoping that he will be able to heal her, ostensibly. And then all the zombie misadventures in between. We run into another group whose boat collapsed. There's like border patrols all around this quarantined island. One of these border patrols sunk, and the survivors came on land, and they ended up getting attacked by alphas and zombies, and only one of them remained. That one ends up saving the son and the mother in one very odd gas station situation, and then just kind of travels with them for a little bit, marking the odd dynamic, because in the mother's dementia, she believes that her son is her father because they have similar eyes. In a moment of clarity, she makes this statement to him. So they come across this train and they see this infected pregnant woman, and the mother just goes up and like, it's like a Crocodile Dundee type thing. Like she just, calms the infected woman down and helps her through the pregnancy. And then the infected woman, starts being infected and shoots and gets shot by this newcomer played by Edvin Riding. His character's name is Eric. He's a Swedish NATO soldier. And then Eric says, look, put the baby down. I'm going to kill it. And you can see the baby's not infected. And it's a baby. But we live in this world right now, right? So he's doing his best to save everyone's life. He's like, if you don't do it, then I'm going to kill all of you. Cue the alpha to come in and literally rip the head and spine out. And that's like the go-to move. They do it to animals and they do it to humans and stuff. So you'll see one of these posters popping up that actually has like a head and a spine dangling from it. That's where that comes from. He actually uses it as a weapon to like bashes people. It's pretty freaky. So they ultimately, that Eric is killed by an alpha, and the mother and son get away because the doctor saves them. They had traveled far enough and close enough to the doctor that the doctor actually uses, apparently has a whole bunch of drugs, like a blowgun dart, in order to sedate the alpha while he takes the mother and son to his little protected area. And that's the sequence where it's like the bones piled up and you see this like almost a maze you're walking into, which is basically just a memorial. It's a memorial of the dead, and the doctor is just trying to create something that indicates that this is something that's happening, that he's remembering the dead, and by remembering the dead, keeping everyone in mind that we all die. And that's an important theme because he comes to the basic understanding that the mother has cancer, and it's riddled like tumors all over her breasts, and it's probably gone into her brain. And so she's scheduled for death. Like she's going to die. And so they actually drug the son, who then has this weird psychedelic fire vision while he's holding this little baby, while the doctor and mother go off, and the doctor kills the mother and then like burns her body, cleans her skull, and brings it back for the son, who then puts it on the top of the big pile in this beautiful sequence of him saying goodbye to his mother. So this young man went through his rite of passage. He realized that his parents are fallible. He realized that his mother cannot be saved, and he went through all this journey for nothing. And now he has to live in the absence of his mother, knowing that she was mercifully killed in this brutal world where she could have been torn apart by monsters. And so there is a little bit of solace in that aspect, in that respect. And he got to spend some wonderful time traveling with her in this very dangerous land. And that's the heart of this film. The the growth of this young man realizing all of these experiences all at once, and us living vicariously through him in very believable ways. And the performances are just stunning. And it's just beautiful, because ultimately it's this statement of life. From the womb, we are all on a slow march towards death. Sometimes chaos gets involved and we die prematurely of whatever our traditional lifespan might bring. But we're all going to die. And it makes me reflect on, well, what are you going to be spending your time doing in that brief moment that we're actually alive? What is it you're going to spend your time doing? Are you going to be raging against other people in hate-filled tirades? Are you going to be spending it with loved ones that you have either been born into and care about, or you have chosen and brought into your life? Are you going to use it supporting other people that you care about, that you want to help? I mean, it does make you sort of reflect on how we behave on a day-to-day basis. And like, we're all just walking dead. We are all slowly dying. Is what we're doing right now really valuable enough to spend that infinitesimally small time that we have here? I mean, it's a good question, in my opinion. And that's what this film brought to mind. And I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful statement. You can almost see the son, his growth, because we all go through what he went through, which is why it's so relatable and heartwarming and contextually relevant. We can see him struggling with all of these ideas, and we then reflect on our own lives and the experiences that we had when we realized the truths that he is facing. It's really stunning. And I think it's a beautiful film. And I don't think people are going to give it the credit it deserves, because it's a horror film. And they're not going to give it the credit it deserves because maybe there's a sequence that they didn't particularly resonate with. And so they just sort of shit on the film. And the truth is this is an emotionally resonant film that speaks to the human condition in a truly personal way. And it is acted beautifully. It is shot beautifully. The soundtrack is very resonant to the first 28 Days Later, which I really appreciate, because that's one of the great soundtracks of all time, in my opinion. So let's talk a little bit about the film. All right, so it was directed by Danny Boyle, written by Alex Garland. Cinematography was by Anthony Dodd Mantle, and the music was by Young Fathers. It opened, of course, this weekend, June 20th, and the budget was about $60 million. It features a distinctive recording of the poem Boots by Rudyard Kipling, read by the actor Taylor Holmes in 1915. And of course, it's sort of like remixed. And it comes in a very interesting time in the film, but you saw it in the trailer because it was the trailer's soundtrack. And another interesting part about this, when 28 Days Later first came out, it was heralded as sort of groundbreaking because it was the first fully digital film. It was 100% shot digitally, which was not a thing, not fully, at that time. This film was primarily shot using an iPhone 15 Pro Max, which makes this film the biggest feature-length movie to be shot on a smartphone. Does that come across or have any bearing on anything? No, not at all. I think it was just something that experimental filmmakers want to try stuff with. But it was a beautiful film. And it also marks Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's first collaborative film in 18 years, as they sorted out their differences after they fell out making Sunshine from 2007. If you have not seen the film Sunshine, Danny Boyle's Sunshine, do yourself a favor and go check it out. It's a great film. So let's talk about the ending, because this is the only part that I was just like record scratch, what? So the son delivers the baby back to the colony and leaves a note saying that he wants to be on his own, processing grief and experiencing life and stuff, away from the colony for a little while, but he'll come back. And basically now the baby, he names it Isla after his mother, and he asks them to be kind to it, even though it was born from an infected, it is clearly not infected itself. And so we cut to him 28 days later, and haha, and he's just sort of hunting fish and eating. And then he sees infected come up. He runs away. He's fighting and shooting them with his arrows, and gets back up against this big wall. And then suddenly we cut to a grown-up version of the very beginning of the film. So the very beginning of the film, and I have to contextually add this because otherwise it makes no sense. The beginning of the film features a bunch of kids watching a Teletubbies show. It was the beginning of the infection. And then one kid gets away, goes to a priest, which ends up being his father. And the priest gives him rosary, I guess it is, a cross with like a necklace around it and stuff. Anyway, the priest is clearly insane. He's like, this is the second coming. This is what we're supposed to be doing, and the son eventually escapes and leaves the whole area. Cut to the very end. The kid's 28 years older. So, he's in his 30s now. And his name is Sir Jimmy Crystal. He's a cult leader of the Jimmies, which is a survivor of the original outbreak. And there's a bunch of Jimmies, and they're all basically like, what is that film? Geez. It's, this is going to drive me insane that I can't think. It's where the dude has his eyes held open, and he has to be forced to listen to Beethoven, and he goes to this bar where milk comes out of statues' nipples, and it's, oh my gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's driving me nuts. Anyway, it's an old cult film from the 70s, and it's a fantastic, weird, crazy film of its time. But it's like this group of Jimmies is very much like his group. Why can't I remember the name of this film? This is going to drive me nuts. So they're just like weird performers, but they're like acrobats, but they're also like punks. It's very odd. It's intentionally odd that they just sort of appear, and he's like, hey, it looks like there's a bunch of infected coming. Mind if we take over from here? And then we see them all giggling and laughing and flipping around and killing these guys and these infected in weird, crazy ways. And then he's like, how about you put it right there. How about we become friends? And that's going to then set up the other movies that are clearly picking up right after this point at the very tail end of the film. Ultra-violence is a phrase that's used in the film all the time. Why can't I think of this film? I'm going to look it up really quick. Excuse me. Wow, this is killing me. For some reason. Oh, man. What is the... I can't even think of what the film is called right now. It's driving me nuts. So, very strange ending to a very wonderful film. Ultimately, I don't think the ending is enough to harm it. I give it 5 out of 5 evil eyes, the best score it can possibly get. This film probably isn't for everyone, and that's okay. Not all films have to be. But if you only like 28 Weeks Later, you might not like this. If you loved 28 Days Later, you're probably going to dig this a lot, because this is much more like 28 Days Later than it is 28 Weeks Later. And I think that's a really, really good thing. It feels like a return to form, going back to its roots and exploring what the coming of age in this type of world might look like. And it's brilliant. I highly recommend it. Check it out this weekend if you have an opportunity. That's going to do it. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode. And as always, like it or not, evil spelled backwards is live. So get out there and be evil.